Breaking news, we just learned that not one but two of the terrorists from the attacks last week in Paris emigrated through Greece posing as Syrian refugees. Both were fingerprinted in Greece on October 3rd. They went on to blow themselves up at the Stade de France a week ago, trying to kill others as they did that. This, as here in America, concern turns to suspicion, and in some cases, suspicion has even turned toward hatred toward Muslim refugees, because the saying, and many of you have heard it, goes that while we know that not all Muslims are terrorists, it's been looking lately like all terrorists are Muslim. I'm joined now by Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. He is founder and president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. Doctor, it's a pleasure to have you, and it's a tough position you're in right now, because you are a Muslim for democracy, but Americans are having a really hard time finding more than just your voice out there.
Well, I know, and you know, the voices that really want reform are the ones that are being decimated in Syria and in these countries in which we have two enemies there. There's Assad regime that they were trying to fight against, and then ISIS that came out of the vacuum that the revolution was actually trying to fill as a third pathway to liberty. So, you know, America's been through this before. World War II, the Vietnam War, Cold War. We fought enemies in whom the countries, the governments, we not only distrusted, but they were our enemies, and yet we welcomed refugees, but we had a vetting process. The papers today for immigration say, are you a member of the Communist Party? We don't have that same type of vetting for Islamists. I mean, my own family in Damascus, you think they're going to let people come from northern Syria and Raqqa, where ISIS is, down to their neighborhoods? No, they're going to vet them for those who are with the Free Syria Army versus those who are ISIS or Assadists, for that matter.
But the problem becomes that people are now smart enough, these terrorists are now smart enough to act like they are refugees. They're probably carrying children. I'm guessing these kids in some cases aren't even their own. You don't know that, of course, but they're smart. They figured it out. So as a devout Muslim who abides by the rules of this country, how do you get more people to join your lone voice and make it a louder chorus so that Americans can say, oh, there are good Muslims? Because we keep hearing, look, there are many good Muslims, and most Muslims aren't bad. And I know that, and you know that, but a lot of Americans are only going by what they see, and that is silence.
And you're right, and that's why this debate and this conversation is so important. It'll put the fire under the feet of my co-religionists to begin to take a side and not just be apologists, not just be in denial, but actually say, you know what, we are going to stand up to represent that we're against Islamists, to declare that we're for the side of freedom and liberty, and also realize that, by the way, this is the power of asynchronous warfare. It creates chaos in order to allow free societies to implode so that the Sunnis won't leave Syria, so that they can attack them back.
But we've got here in New York City many Muslim mosques. I have not heard a single Muslim leader, unless I've missed it somehow, really come out, go to Times Square, say this is an outrage what's been happening, show their face, and stand up to the evil of this so-called tiny faction. Where are those people? Are they too scared? And that's not a good enough reason, is it?
No, that's an excuse. And, you know, America is a haven of freedom and calm compared to what our families are living in Syria and elsewhere, so they need to step up. We're developing a coalition that will be speaking soon in a major conference to be announced that will let America see that it's not just me. There are many organizations that are united against not only ISIS, but all Islamic states. And I think this is the problem, is they're conflicted. They hate the means, they hate what ISIS stands for, but they're not ready to take on the ideology, because they're apologists for the ideology. They just want to condemn the acts of terror, which Americans are tired of hearing. They want to hear us solve the problem at its core, which is the theology that needs reform and modernization. And if they're not ready to do that, unfortunately, they're staying silent.
Well, now you're stuck with a situation developing, certainly with some of the candidates who are running for president. Donald Trump he didn't directly say. He responded, everything should be on the table, when somebody said, there be a registry, all Muslims have to register. That is incomplete. It doesn't work at all with our U.S. Constitution anyway. But what must you feel as a Muslim who is a law-abiding Muslim? And listen, we love you. You come on Fox all the time. But you've got that. You've got Dr. Ben Carson, who's not far behind on this. And they're getting traction.
Yeah. Oh, I know. And it's because this is what happens in a free society where there's no leadership and precision and accuracy when we're talking about identifying the enemy and identifying our allies. You end up having this word salad of confusion, and especially presidential candidates need to be able to thread the needle between Islamists that are our enemy and Muslims who are our greatest allies. Mosques, which may be cauldrons of political Islam, but as long as they're not preaching violence, we are much more able to shed the light of day and make them wither away through the antiseptic of sunlight by seeing them than pushing them underground and allowing them to flourish, because we can no longer monitor. So yes, monitor, expose, but leave them be free, just as we do with the KKK and the Nazi Party, because we can better prevent hate by exposing it and engaging. By the way, if you want moderate Muslims to step up, you do it by leaving them legal so that we can hold them accountable. By pushing them underground, you give our Muslim community a pass about reform.
Well, nobody wants to give anybody a pass, and in fact, I do fear that the situation as it develops, considering that the news broke within the last 2 hours that not one but two of the suicide bombers in Paris had sneaked their way. They had come posing as Syrian refugees. How do we know that that's not going to happen here? I understand the fear in this country. How do you feel President Obama has been handling this situation?
Absence. He's been completely allowing a vacuum to exist. He's giving us lectures about not identifying a faith test, when in fact Muslims that are screaming for reform want the enemy to be called what they are, which is Islamists, so that anti-Islamists that don't believe in the identification of the Islamic State. The reason a regular Muslim lady will become a terrorist is she identifies with the wish to die for the Islamic State. The Muslims who are our allies are the ones that want to die for France, for American freedom, for liberty, that want to join our militaries and security forces. That's the conflict. And until our leadership, our president and others can begin to identify those as the enemies and those who want to die for America as our friends, America is going to get more and more confused and more viscerally angry.
Zuhdi, let us know when you have your forum where you say you're going to bring a bunch of moderate Muslim voices together. We'd like to cover that. Thank you.
We'll be here. We'll be there.
Zuhdi Jasser is American Islamic Forum for Democracy founder and president. Thank you. Closing bell, we're 12 minutes away, and right now the Dow is still holding on to